about that. See if I can get some.
Good evening. I would like to call the Government Services Committee meeting for Monday, October 27th to order. Roll call, please.
Weber.
Here.
Sokaitis.
Here.
Foltz.
Here.
Munns. Here. Bungard.
Here.
Gem.
Here.
Spellman.
Here.
Petrilla.
Here.
Wirball.
Here.
Kestner.
Here.
All right, looks like we're all here. We are going to be taking items 5A, 5C, and 5D off of omnibus. And with that, I'm looking for a motion for then our one remaining item.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jamie, seconded by Bob. Roll call, please.
Weber.
Yes.
Sokaitis.
Yes.
Foltz.
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Gem.
Yes.
Spellman.
Yes.
Petrilla.
Yes.
Wirball.
Yes.
Kestner.
Yes.
Awesome. That brings us to item 5A. We're looking for a recommendation to approve a resolution authorizing a master engineering service agreement for the 2026 road program. Chris, Pete, anyone? Or I guess I could turn first.
Hold on.
Right.
Yeah, I got some questions. I'll wait for Peter to get up there.
Yes.
Okay. The $75,000, is that a retainer fee or is that an amount that they're going to take out of for design services and things like that? What is the fee for?
You can call it a retainer. So if they, for example, if we utilize them and they spend $75,000 and bill it, then that's all they're charging. So it's not a $75,000 check that we write them and utilize them. So it's really a supplemental engineering staff that helps our interior staff do their work. They sometimes are assigned more specialty projects. If for some reason our staff gets overloaded, we've got that ready to go. Historically, we've utilized an engineer every year, so we just like to kind of get it in the queue and have it there for those uses.
And then it says that you don't really have any locations identified. So how do we identify it? Are we going through them, or what do we?
No, so we'll do the normal street program. We'll do our normal course. Typically, probably coming up in the next couple of months, you'll see the first recommendation on the street program that we will recommend for next year. You'll be able to comment on that to see the program, and then in the spring, after everything is bid, it comes back to you for final approval of the actual contracts.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Move for approval.
Second. So we have a motion by Brian, second by Ron. Roll call, please.
Weber.
Yes.
Sokaitis.
Yes.
Foltz.
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Gem.
Yes.
Spellman.
Yes.
Petrilla.
Yes.
Wirball.
Yes.
Kestner.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 5C, recommendation to approve a resolution awarding the bid for well 11 maintenance. This was Steve.
Yeah, Tim, I just had at least one question, maybe two. So on the matrix that you have here, the lowest bidder obviously is Cohoy Pump Service. That's what you're recommending.
Yep.
So if you can refresh my memory, do we always have to take the lowest bid whenever we throw out, bid requests like this?
No, we review every bid, check their qualifications, just like we did in this bid, make sure that they provided the proper bid. Sometimes a low bidder that may, forget something, and they'll actually remove their bid from the process. So no, we don't always have to take the lowest bid. We typically do in government type of setting.
Right, and again, I appreciate that because obviously cost savings and what have you. But so in this case, I mean, the difference between the lowest, and then the next lowest is like about 24,000. So do you have any insight? I'm curious. Like, for instance, we budgeted 70,000 for this, and it came in at 39. So that's great. So there's some savings. However, Great Lakes Water Resources is at 63, and then Municipal Wells at 63. I mean, Lane is a little high at 79, but so are we the reason I pulled this off, I just wanted to get your insights on this. Are we missing out on any other services? Not that I don't think you're vetting these people, but is there, to me personally, I don't think there's any problem with not necessarily always taking the lowest bid. Like, we could go with like Great Lakes, and I have no connection to Great Lakes. I don't know them at all. Just as an example, closer to our budgeted amount, and so we're not missing out on any service.
No, those are all great questions. Those are the same questions we see when we have a little bid like this. We start, going through with a fine tooth comb and pick up the phone, check our references, all the references checked out. I had a personal phone call with the owner of Coy, went through the bid docs themselves. There was no errors. I personally have done business with Coy about 15 years ago. They drilled a shallow well for us when I was in a different community, and they did a good job. So we feel confident, and let me add too, well 11 is probably our easiest well to pull. So if it was a tougher well or a bigger well, we probably have a little more concern, but this is probably our easiest project well to pull out of all of our wells. So we feel confident. We feel confident awarding the bid to them. And we'll see other performances. There's also performance matrix and standards in our contract if they don't meet those standards.
And then, sorry, one more question. So like Lane, for instance, because again, I'm not suggesting that you provide like a detailed matrix of like your rubric or whatever on how you vet these other than your verbal assurance, but like Lane, I'm just curious, like that's $40,000. What are they doing? Is that? I can't. I don't want you to throw under the bus.
I can't speak for Lane, but everything, like any contract, every contractor has their own overhead they got to cover, current workload, their expected, costs, that all weighs into the bidding matrix.
Right. Okay,
so.
Just curious. I didn't know. I mean, it's such a range. I just wanted to. And I asked for D to come off or similar because there was 29. It was 29 grand each, and then versus 55. So you answered if the rationale is the same, then we can go D. So thank you.
Move for approval.
Second.
So moved by Brian, seconded by David. Roll call, please, for 5C.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis,
Yes.
Folks,
Yes.
Munns, Gem,
Yes.
Spellman,
yes,
Petrella,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Bessner.
Yes.
So you're good with 5D?
I am. Yeah, I'll move for approval on that as well.
Second.
So for 5D, recommendation to approve a resolution awarding a proposal for the West Side Lift Station Pump Repair. Moved by David, second by Dr. John. Roll call, please.
Gem,
Yes.
Spellman,
yes,
Petrella,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Bessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis,
Yes.
Folks,
Yes.
Munns. Yes.
5E, recommendation to approve a resolution authorizing additional engineering fees for the Well 7 to Well 13 construction project.
This is a follow-up conversation that's going on in a couple of months with the city council in the executive session, and we voted on a settlement agreement and mutual release with IHC companies for the Well 7 to 13 project. This is fees, engineering fees that cover additional costs occurred during the project for Trotter and Associates. They did provide a discount to help cover some of I think all of the legal fees of $20,000. With this change, we still are under the authorized loan amount. The original authorized loan amount was for $8.5 million. With all the changes in the project completed, this brings us in at just over $7.6 million. Any questions?
Is this the final piece of all this now, Tim?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I noticed Trotter and Associates, they do a lot of work for us. And if I recall, a couple of years ago, we hired maybe 2 additional engineering firms. Is there a way to diversify some of our engineering services besides, it just seems like Trotter gets a lot of it. I know being familiar with things helps. It would just be nice to see different firms. I'm not completely happy with how this turned out, but that's all. I'll just leave it at that, so.
Understood.
Thank you. So, are we still under budget? You said the loan amount, but what
Loan
about the
amount,
actual budget?
yes, we have some administration on the budget side because this project lasted so long and took so long. We'll have to, we're under budget, but the way it lays out every year, we're carrying funds over, so,
So we'll be over budget on this?
on the
Yeah,
engineering side.
on this
but we'll-
whole thing, okay.
Yeah, but we'll have some extra funds to move over.
And I share Alderman Walpole's concerns. I don't understand, I mean, I know we talked about it.
Yep.
I'm just not happy with the way things turned out with this. I'm really not. It's too long, 140-day delay. It's a long time. Okay, thank you.
Weber will move.
Second.
Moved by Steve, second by Bob. Roll call, please.
Kim,
Yes.
Spellman,
Yes.
Petrola,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Gessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulturitis,
Yes.
Folks,
Yes.
Munz.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 5F, a recommendation to approve a resolution awarding a proposal for pavement repairs at the Q Center.
So the weekend of September 20th, 21st, we had two large water main breaks at the Q Center. It caused severe damage to a lot of their pavement at the facility. Because of the large amount of pavement, we hurried up and got some proposals for the pavement repairs. We received pricing from two vendors, Arthur Luton's and Builders Paving, who's currently doing our MFT. We worked with both firms. Luton's excavating was slightly lower at $118,000 to wrap up the repairs at the Q Center. We're asking for authorization to move forward with repairs at the Q Center. To note, this is going to put us over budget, and I believe finance is going to follow up with a budget add at government ops, right?
Move for approval.
So, hold on a second, sorry. So I have a question. So the city owns the water main, right?
Yep.
And we're repairing the pavement that was, so if you think about a residential house, and we talk about where pipes connect under the ground, right?
Yep.
And if the city has to repair a line, but there's construction, there's secondary costs that happen, that becomes on the homeowner. Why are we going and fixing?
That's, for water main breaks, it's the opposite. So a good example is backyard water mains. We have backyard water mains that completely destroy a backyard from the back door all the way to the back fence. When we have those type of main breaks, we come in because we destroy the backyard. There's really nothing left of the landscaping. We go back and repair that all the time. That's standard practice that the city's done for decades, and it's a standard practice in the industry too. Same thing in the front of the house. If we have a large water main break that destroys your driveway, there's often times that we are going beyond our property line to restore that driveway.
Yeah, my question isn't about the water main.
Okay.
As other examples, it seems like in the city where we do the opposite, like, hey, that's on your side, it happened over there, and, our line stops here, and the pipe connects, it's all one pipe, and...
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to break down each one of those details and have a real conversation about that, but, I mean, to figure out the situation.
So moved by Brian, seconded by David.
I had a question.
Sorry.
Sorry, before we move on. Was it just age, or how did those mains break? Were they
Age and deterioration. In our master plan, we talk about, our infrastructure and the age of our infrastructure, and this is one of the areas. This is not the only area. This is not the worst area in town where the pipe is deteriorating, but that's what causes main breaks.
And then regarding the budget addition, so Bill, you're not prepared to say where it's coming from yet, or that's coming up later?
So that will most likely be a budget addition in the normal course of the budget additions that are brought to government operations.
Got it. Okay. Thanks. I'll second.
I just have a quick question about the bidders. Is Builders Paving the same company that we had been waiting on for Prairie Street that we were not allowed to use because of the IDOT situation?
Yeah, but don't forget, we did use them for MFT or road patching. I don't have my engineering
Yeah, I know
here, as we used them for one of those two projects.
And so I'm curious if the state isn't allowed to use them because of whatever is going on with that, why are we accepting bids from them if there is an ongoing concern?
That is a legal question I don't think I can answer, so I think maybe that's a follow-up question at a later date, maybe.
Okay.
But I think there's no,
So I'm not familiar with the bid, but have we already accepted a bid from Builders Asphalt, or where is it in the process?
sorry.
This is not the one being recommended for this bid. We've done other work with them in the past, and they are currently on hold with IDOT for any of the grant awards because of some litigation that's going on with them.
So to specifically answer your question, IDOT did put a hold on a certain aspect of awarding bids to Builders Pavement. They are still accepting bids from Builders Paving. In fact, if you look at IDOT's website right now, they have in excess of 35 bids that they're due to award to Builders Paving. That is in regards to an issue that the state has with Builders Paving and their legal status in terms of federal funding. So it has nothing to do with their work, their quality of work, their workmanship, their material, all meets spec, everything like that.
So we wouldn't have an issue.
Pardon me?
If we accepted a bid from them, we wouldn't have an issue getting work done as a result of
no.
someone
In fact,
coming to us and saying,
in fact, they
"You can't
completed
do
our
it."
MFT project this year ahead of schedule and under budget.
Okay, okay. That's
Does that answer your
my
question?
top concern, but also if this is somebody that the state isn't doing business with, I want to understand why we would. So it sounds like that's not the case.
Sure, we inquired with the state. I think we spoke to this at our last government services meeting. The state refuses to divulge specifics about that.
Right.
Just quoting pending legislation,
Right.
or pending legal issues. So
Okay.
they won't even talk to us about what it is.
That's what I'm getting to.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you very much.
Thank you.
How did I jump down the floor? So,
Move it second.
Brian, motion by Brian, second by David, roll call please.
Gann,
Yes.
Spellman,
Yes.
Petrella,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Bessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis,
Yes.
Folks,
No.
Munns.
Yes.
Thank you. That brings us to item 5G, recommendation to approve a resolution awarding a proposal for supervisory control and data acquisition program management to concentric. Integration.
So actually, the next two resolutions or agenda items are kind of tied together. Concentric does all our program management for our SCADA system. Our SCADA system, as a reminder, kind of runs our entire water and wastewater system. It's basically an IT system behind the scenes that turns pumps on, turns pumps off, sends out alarms, monitors our water treatment and wastewater treatment. So it's a lot of IT-based software and hardware behind the scenes and industrial kind of computer programming. Concentric helps with all those that computer programming aspects. This year, they'll be working with our IT team, which is on the next approval, to upgrade some of our SCADA servers and switches and some of our backbone components to our SCADA system. This will be their portion of work, the labor and the professional services.
Move for approval.
Brian, second by Bob, roll call please.
Gann,
Yes.
Spellman,
Yes.
Petrella,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Bessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis,
Yes.
Folks,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Thank you. 5H, recommendation to approve a resolution awarding a proposal for supervisory control and data acquisition equipment purchase.
So through the process of working with Concentric and our IT team, we have a need to replace a couple servers and a couple backbone switches that are in our system. Some of these items have become an age, one has actually failed. We, through the process, actually found that our IT team could get better pricing through the purchasing agreements they have and the resources they have. So they went out for us to provide 3 quotes. Conres came with the lowest bid. We are recommending an award of the SCADA equipment purchases to Conres.
Jim, just a question. So these two combined, so we have the total budget of 300,000?
Yep.
That's for both of them, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So that total is 300, so
Yeah,
we
so
come in
we're-
at like 243.
Yep, right.
Okay.
Still under budget.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Brian, second by David. Roll call, please.
Gann,
Yes.
Spelman,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirbal,
Yes.
Bessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis,
Yes.
Folks,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 5I, recommendation to approve a resolution awarding the bid for a 2-year contract for snow and ice removal services.
So we're here to talk to you about snow in September, so I feel seasonable now. So during our winter months, Public Works mans 18 snow routes onto 12-hour shifts during an event. We utilize contractual services in our downtown area on city-owned parking lots and sidewalks adjacent to our parking lots, as well as in the 180 cul-de-sacs and alleys throughout the city. In total, we divide these contractual areas into 11 routes. We don't use them every event, just for prolonged snow events or snow in excess of 2 inches. We recently issued a bid for this for a 2-year contract for snow removal services. Bidders were asked to provide hourly rates as well as equipment availability for which routes they're able to fill. We received 6 bids for these routes. We're recommending to award to 4 contractors based on equipment availability as well as the bid rates. These contractors include Snow Systems of Wheeling, Illinois, Skyline Tree Service of St.Charles, the Langton Group of Woodstock, and Triple H Mulch and Firewood of St. Charles. The Langton Group is the only newcomer to this area. We've checked their references and they've demonstrated that they have the equipment to bill our contract.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Brian, second by Ed. Roll call, please.
Gann,
Yes.
Spelman,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirbal,
Yes.
Bessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis,
Yes.
Folks,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Thank you. 5J, a recommendation to approve a resolution awarding the bid for winter rock salt purchase through the State of Illinois Central Management Services.
So for the upcoming season, Compass Minerals won the state's bid for our area for rock salt provision, rate of $72.18 for our order of 1,892 tons of salt. The bid's in line with what we paid last year. Historically, it kind of bounces all over, so I'm hesitant to say recent past because it could range from $60 to the mid $80 range. So feeling lucky that we're relatively consistent this year. In terms of the contract, we're required to take a minimum of 80% of the order and a maximum of 120% of the order. And as I noted in the executive summary, we also sell salt at our cost to District 303 as well as the Park District.
I do. Thank you. So I'm looking at the school district, they use, let's say, 30,000. So in other words, the proposed cost, would that be 30,000 less than in the final total?
More or less. They reimburse us at the end of the season.
Okay, thank you.
Did we have a surplus last year? based on what ordered?
This is a smaller order for us because we're sitting on a pretty good stockpile right now.
Sure, that's it. I have one more question. You kind of jogged my memory with Jamie's question. I have a stupid question. Does salt go bad? I mean, can we keep it forever? Or?
As long as you keep it dry, that's good.
Cool.
I'm kind of a dork when it comes to business, so when you say cost, is that just the cost of the salt that the school gets? Because obviously there's labor involved in scooping and all that kind of
They
stuff.
come and pick it up themselves. We don't deliver it to them, and they just put a ticket for what they take in their box.
Perfect, thank you. I'll make a motion.
Second. Steve, second by Ed. Roll call, please.
Gann,
Yes.
Spelman,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirbal,
Yes.
Bessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis,
Yes.
Folks,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Thank you, Adrian. That brings us to item 5K, a presentation of Eco Park by the River Corridor Foundation, Mr. Radja.
Good evening. Thank you for providing us for some time to explore a new idea that we have for the riverfront in downtown St. Charles. You know, having a river in the downtown area is something that many cities would give their eye teeth for. So we're very happy that we have that opportunity. We've presented a number of things over the years, but you know, our goal is to provide, enhance the downtown riverfront environment and you know, do cultural things, etc. And I think on this next slide, if I can do this. give you an idea of some of the things that we've done, we've been involved with over $1 million worth of riverfront improvements over the years. Everything from the Bob Leonard Walkway to a number of sculptures to, we just finished up a week ago planting 30,000 daffodil bulbs in Mount St. Mary Park. We had this, it's a little bit wrong. It says the annual cleanup. We had 150 volunteers. We actually had 110 this year. I made this slide a while ago. 150 is what we've been averaging in previous years. So, but anyway, we do a winter lecture series. In fact, we're just in the process of putting that together now. So it gives you an idea of some of the things that the River Corridor Foundation has done. And it's a group of volunteers. There's no paid staff at all, etc. So what we're proposing to consider is what we're calling the St. Charles Eco Park, which is a destination floating garden in downtown St. Charles. So by floating garden, it's atop the river. I don't know if any of you have been down there or not, but there's a great example of this, and you can see in this picture here. This is Wild Mile, Chicago. So right over here on the right-hand side is Goose Island. Just down past Goose Island is where that new Bally's Casino is going in. So this is in the building right here where the Wild Mile starts is actually REI Supply down there. So it's, give you some reference. What this is, and you can see, is a series of walkways plus planting areas. There's no topsoil. The plants actually put their roots down into the water and through the materials, and I'll show you that in a second. So you grow these gardens. Oh, I keep hitting them now. You keep growing these garden areas, and you have walkways, etc. Becomes a destination for people. I think at the Wild Mile this year, they had 260 visits by schools and other environmental groups, etc. It's a wonderful teaching experience. We have had conversation with the Park District staff. Tomorrow night, I'll do this same presentation to the Park District Board so that they're aware of it as well. But all of this is on top of water. And what happens is, as I said, the roots of the plants go down underneath and through this material, but you can walk through those gardens. So myself and another two guys my size were standing about here where I have the cursor now, and it took about 3 or 4 minutes for the water to come up where it was at the bottom of our, soles of our shoes, etc. So they have done a wonderful job of putting this all together. This has all been done with grants, so they have grants from people like Shed Aquarium and Google and some other people, some of the big industries downtown. And so they have a lot of visitors there every day, and it's encouraged on the river. Then kayakers can come up and park, and go out. They have jazz nights. They have s'mores cooking nights. They have a heater out there where they can, or a fireplace, where they can put together, do s'mores, etc. with kids and that. To give you an idea, this installation here is about 1,500 feet long and maybe about 150 feet wide at its widest. And I'll show you some examples of where we think this might fit in downtown St. Charles. It would not be this size, but it gives you a good idea what potentially can be done. Walking on it is certainly that you're on a dock, in effect, just like you'd be on a dock at a lakefront property someplace. It's not something you'd want to ride bicycles on or have a big crowd of people on. So you wouldn't want to use this, say, for example, underneath the railroad trestle coming out of Potawatomi Park on the 4th of July. When we used to have the fireworks there and a big, huge mob comes through, that would be a lot for a dock or for, et cetera. Because you can feel that it moves a little bit, but it's pretty stable, so anyway.
Does the dock float? Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Does it float, or
yes.
is it supported by beams?
It's all floating.
Okay.
The whole thing is floating, and in fact, one of the common questions I get as we've been talking about this for a while is, well, what happens when the water goes up and et cetera? They've had one experience where the river water on the Chicago River actually went up by 10 feet, and it didn't affect anything. So everything worked in sync and tied together, and so there was no disruption of what the park is.
What material is the actual that they're walking on?
Well, here, these are modular units, so there's modular, they're wood, like a deck would be, on top of it, and underneath is a floating material, you know, floats, et cetera. These are the planting areas, and see how there's ribs here? So the plants actually are tucked in between the ribs, okay? And there are some, I don't know if this picture shows any, but some of them are trees as well. So they have trees, and they'll cut a hole in here and then suspend the tree down into the water area. One interesting little note, when we were down there, there was a couple of places where there was just a little hole and like a coffee can, a little bit bigger, sticking up out of it. And I said, what's that for? And I said, well, the muskrats and the beaver like to know what's going on, so they want to stick their heads up and look around. If we don't provide a hole, they make one. So anyway, and you can, I didn't want to do that. You can see how the floating garden, all the roots from the plants are soaking up vegetation, or, you know, the algae, et cetera, so the impurities in the water. Then also it's creating a great habitat for fish and other wildlife. And so, you know, talking to the Corps of Engineers and also the Department of Natural Resources, they can't approve a project where we haven't presented anything, so no plan yet, but they have been very, very cooperative and go overboard in helping us say what it could look like and where it might fit, et cetera. Because if you think about it, okay, you got water improvement, you got fish or wildlife habitat improvements, you got all native plants, it's a big native planting area, you're creating more parkland, and you're making better use of the river. Those are all plus things. There's another big plus I'll tell you about in a second too. But you can see, so here's a group of school children, et cetera, doing some activity. One of the things they have, and I think it's in this area, was an open area where you could see down in the water, and they put lights down there so the kids could watch all the fish swimming by, you know. Here's a ramp. This is, so the REI building, right behind it, there's this ramp that goes down, and the ramp, it is on a hinge, so it goes up and down with the water level, just like we have at the Gorman boat dock up here. When you get on, you know, at that area, there's a ramp area. Here's the s'mores cooking thing. You can see they got donated a pontoon boat that they use for bringing materials in, et cetera. But it's also, there's a place for kayaks to park, et cetera. Here's some more walkways. Here's some of the vegetation that's growing. You know, and we're in a very lucky situation, I guess, in that we have a number of large horticultural-based firms here in the area. For example, that may come in very handy. I have not talked to them about this because I'm trying to take baby steps on this and look for, you know, how far we want to go with it. But 80% to 90% of the plants down here on the one at Wild Mile come from what's that? Midwest. Yeah, Midwest Ground Cover. You know, so that's a local firm. You know, we have Morton Arboretum in the area. We've got Ball Seed in the area. We've got a number of, we've had a great relationship with Heinz Brothers. You know, they've provided all the bulbs for us for the 30,000 plus and et cetera. So we anticipate that if this is successful and everybody wants to do it, that we'll get some cooperation from those operations as well. Now, you're not going to be able to see this very well. I didn't draw my lines big enough.
We can see it, John, on our screens.
Can you see it on yours?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, for John in the back and Jim. One area. So this is the railroad trestle here, where I have the cursor now. So just south of that, you can see that the river wall actually makes a cove. So there's an indentation that comes, and right now that's where the Gorman boat dock is. There's water lilies, et cetera, there, and that would be a pretty good area, and it would then be tied down horizontally to the river wall and vertically down to the river bottom itself. You know, then over here, the next one is along Alta Brewery. apologize for that, is there's an area from about Main Street Bridge or just south of that down to Illinois Street Bridge that you could do on the west side of the river. And that one's got a little bit more complications. The water's not very deep, although the guys at Wild Mile tell me that they can live in a foot and a half of water. So I think we've got that even in low water conditions like we've had this last summer. That would be highly visible against the new plaza area. The third area that we looked at is over on the east side, right underneath Graceful Ordinary, and there'd be a walkway coming down from somewhere around Illinois Street down to get down to that. So those are all possible locations. We have not done any engineering yet at all with this. The idea was just to give you where that might fit in. You want it to be in a place where the water conditions are right, where we can tie it to something, where we have access for a ramp or multiple ramps, and you want it to be accessible, highly accessible by people. These things become a real destination. In addition to being an ecological advantage, they're a real destination for both the local community. The D303 people I assume would love this. Even Elgin Community College has a water garden class structure. You know, there's a water garden place. Aquascape, of course, is here, and there's also another one up off of McDonald Road. I have a water garden in my yard, and that's where I've gotten a lot of my plants over the years, etc. So we got a lot of things going locally for that. We would create a brand new downtown park. So we've talked about, you know, on the police station property here, you know, just north of here, etc., that one of the things or the comments that I heard from everybody over the past few years is how can we have more parks downtown? This would create a brand new park on top of the river. And it would bring dollars to the downtown area. We're going to improve water quality. We're going to improve wildlife habitat. It's an educational tool, and it's a new community resource that we think would be volunteer maintained. Now, one of the things about this kind of a park that was, as with any park, is you have to look at it long term in terms of maintenance, in terms of liability, in terms of other, you know, repairs, maintenance on it, et cetera. And those are all questions that I don't have answers for at the moment, but we would get those, obviously, before we proceeded any farther. We think all of that's doable, and in fact, we think that we can have this built through grants and donations. We've already received one six-figure donation for this, which would more than pay for the engineering aspect of it if we want to proceed with it. We think there's some more opportunities for other people that would, you know, for naming rights, et cetera. Ryan?
Do you know what the price tag is? I'm just curious. If you're talking about grants and donations, that's great, but a project like this...
Yeah, I asked, one of the things is that they have some excess material, some of these components, you know, that they are willing to share with us, and not knowing what the exact design would be and how many of this and how many of that, et cetera. But when I asked them, and we looked at one area of theirs, say about half of it, so 500 or 600 feet long, they figured about $500,000. So it's not a $100 million project, you know, or a $20 million project. And with our one donation already, we're, you know, well on the way to at least supporting the initial effort, you know, et cetera. So, you know, don't hold me to that because we haven't got a design yet. We don't know for sure, but that's something we would do step by step with you guys.
And I know, John, I know we've met about this privately, of course, and on a personal note, I think it's a great idea. I support it personally, but just for everyone else's edification as well. So the reason this isn't a problem with the Army Corps is because they float, so we're not technically actually narrowing the channel of the river, so that's why this is not a horribly difficult thing to accomplish.
Yeah, there is. I mean, one of those, the site up by, or right off of Alter Brewery and just underneath Graceful Ordinary, there's concern by the DNR as to whether that would narrow the river. Yeah, I mean, this sounds crazy, but this is a navigable river and has to be open for transportation. No boat's gonna go over the dam, no boat's gonna go underneath the Main Street Bridge, no boat's gonna go down. But there was some concern expressed about whether we would narrow the river there at that location. I think that could be accommodated, you know. The site probably up closer to the railroad trestle is a more natural site. I think it's got some real advantages. But again, you know, until we do some engineering and et cetera, that we wouldn't know for sure.
One, if I may. And I know you're not done with your presentation yet, but maybe this is more for staff. Not deciding tonight, but is it possible to potentially, I don't know if this would be helpful, could we entertain the idea of maybe presenting John with like a letter of support in some capacity? Or is that too much of a promise, I guess? Because I think that would be helpful, I would assume, in garnering grants. Right?
That's a big part of me coming here tonight, is what I'm really looking for before we take our next step, is to say, I want to know that the city would like this, and that the Park District would like it. You know, if it's something, no, that doesn't fit our image, we don't want that kind of a thing here, we got other ideas for what we want to do on the river, then that's fine, then we'll go our way and we'll do something else or keep looking for other ways that we can improve the riverfront. We think this is a great idea, and certainly when I go for donations, as I've learned over the past, what has it been, Jim, 15 years since we did the Active River Project proposal, I think, and I think I did almost 100 presentations on that. The first question you get asked when you ask somebody for money is the city behind it? And, you know, if the city wants it, it doesn't commit you to anything, but I just want to know that or we want to know that it's something that you see would be very beneficial to the city. It would be very unique. I know I had a conversation with somebody from Geneva the other day and just mentioned that I was going to do something on this, and right away they got, well, we could do that in Geneva. Well, they could maybe, but, you know, I think we're a few steps ahead of them anyway.
I don't know if you were going to, Heather, you were going to comment on that? Is that something we can think about, or?
We absolutely can. I think based on the feedback tonight, especially because the conversation John and I had was that he was not looking for any financial contribution. Right. As long as that feedback is positive from City Council, I'm happy to work with him to draft whatever he needs that will be supportive.
I would support that.
I think we need to have strong support or desirability, maybe is a better way to put it, from both you and the Park District. If you think about it, all of those three sites, or each of those three sites, is adjacent to city-owned land. So the access point is all city-controlled. In terms of being a park, then there's a natural thing to say. The Park District, they've got horticulturists, they've got people that schedule educational activities, et cetera, and schedule volunteers. They have some of that infrastructure in place. This would just be an addition. So if those two groups, you and the Park District, say, yeah, this is something we really want, then I think, I can't speak entirely for River Corridor, but I could assume that River Corridor would say, let's proceed, you know, with the next step. And certainly we would bring any next step. I mean, if we came up with a concept plan and we said, now we've decided this is the area and this is kind of what we think it's going to look like, we'll bring that back to you so you get a chance to look at it and have your 2 cents in it.
I'll give you my 2 cents, John. This is the most practical, achievable project that I've seen so far for the river that everybody, all ages, shapes, and sizes can use. I would 100% support it, both from the city council perspective as well as personally. So I'm all for it. This is awesome.
Thank you.
And that location right by the Freedom Shrine is tailor-made for this.
Yeah, I think
it's basically a floating garden anyways. It's just lily pads that you can't walk on.
That's pretty cool.
So it makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know and I haven't asked the guys down at the Wild Mile. I think that it would take away from the lily pads. I mean, we'd cover up a bunch of them, but I think that we would, I mean, it's not a huge thing where it's going to clean up the river and we're going to see down 10 feet, you know, in depth and stuff, but it would take enough of the algae and stuff out of that shoreline that it might have an impact on restricting the...
That little cove kind of acts as a harbor, so I think that's why. So. And
I think we can, with a little bit of engineering assistance, I think we can incorporate the Gorham boat dock into it so kayakers could park there, et cetera. Certainly, as I was at that site the other day, 2 bass jumped up out of the water, just like saying hi to me or something, I don't know. But, so...
Is the expectation, I know you're going to meet with the park board, but is there an expectation that the park district would either take over the park at some point or be part of it? I know you said a volunteer staff, of course, but...
Maybe. You know, I think there's a couple of questions about that. One, the DNR in particular wants a governmental body to stand back behind us somehow. You know, there's always a concern when you do these kind of things. Well, it's nice and dandy and everybody loves it today, but what happens 20 years from now? You know, and there's a big flood and it gets damaged and who's going to take over responsibility? Those things we got to work out yet. That's part of the next steps along the line. There's a possibility that the Wild Mile guys in Chicago might want to own the structure. I don't know. One of the things about it that I didn't mention is, in its modular construction, is it can be deconstructed and reconstructed somewhere else.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Relatively easy. I mean, it's not something you do overnight, but over a week or so, we could take it all apart and move it to one of the other locations. One thing that is up in the air, however, is the dam. You know, if the dam gets taken out at some point in time, if the dam gets taken out, then the river wall, you know, tying something, this river wall is going to be, could be, I don't know that any study's been done yet or that we've seen, but the river wall could be a long way from water. And so how do you tie, you know, to it? So we'll see what happens.
Sorry, timeline, that's something, and the reason I brought it up, because the first location, if, correct me if I'm wrong, ties into previous conversations we've had about, you know, that PD side and what we might be doing. So is that, if ultimately council says, you know, we're going to go in this particular direction, you know, it's going to be a, you know, green space, open space, but we're talking 5 years out.
No, it's a lot quicker than that. I think it's a year, maybe two at the most, that we would know. I mean, both the Corps and the state, the DNR, have been very pushing me for filling out their forms, but it's essentially they look at it as a dock. So when you put a dock in for your boat, you know, up here across from Potawatomi Golf Course or something, the permitting is pretty loose. I mean, it's not a difficult thing at all. And from their perspective, as we said, there's a lot of pluses. They look at this, you know, all the plus factors, and all of the people that we would work with at the Corps and the DNR are people that also did the Wild Mile. They're working with them on an almost daily basis.
With this concept, when you came up with it, or the thought, was that with the dam in or out?
With it wouldn't matter. We can do it with either way.
So, with the in or out, nothing gets affected with the thought process design that you had?
The location changes and the design may change, but we could move it to another place.
So is there one more desirable with the in compared to out? I guess that's what I'm wondering, because like Ryan was talking timeline here, and if we have a timeline on the dam, we make a decision on the dam, but if the one that fits, I don't want to say fits best, because like you're saying, you can go, like, is it better with the dam in or dam out at certain locations? Is that, and you're saying, maybe you don't have that answer today, and that's fine. That's just kind of curiosity as we're and I guess I'm bringing that up because we're trying to decide on the police station, and then we're trying to decide on the dam, and then adding that in. This is a lot of moving parts, and I'd hate to commit. Like, I love the idea. Don't get me wrong. I think this is, like Alderperson Weber said, this is phenomenal, easy to get behind, and I would hate to make a decision. You go, well, shoot, we thought the dam was in, and it fit because the dam was in, and now the dam's out, or vice versa, or, hey, we're going to put this in as a police station site, and now this doesn't. So I'm kind of wondering, and maybe this will be a better question for staff, where do the pieces line up to make sure if this is something we all like and all want to go forward, that the other optics match?
Well, you know, I would love to answer your question more directly, but I don't know, and neither does anybody else know, what the river looks like if the dam comes out. Right. So to say that this is a better location, et cetera, without knowing what the river may look like, it's an unknown.
So these are kind of designed with dam in place?
The only place we can look at right now is with dam in place, because there's nobody that I know that has a picture of what the river might look like if the dam came out.
So if it came out, we'd be back to the drawing board, so to say?
Well, then we could move it. You know, if the dam came out, then we can move this eco park to another place along the river.
Alderperson Brooks, that was one of the questions that John and I discussed, is that it is a movable piece so that we can relocate it into different areas if necessary.
Okay. I would just hate for a metric to be agreed upon and then a metric get taken out and we are at a point where you're in limbo. That's all.
Yeah, it would be nice to know what the river looked like, you know, in that case, but as far as I know, nobody knows, so, you know, it's,
And how long has Chicago's been in?
I don't, did those guys tell you about how long that theirs has been in? I think it's 4 or 5 years.
And the upkeep's been pretty manageable with it, in and out, 5 years?
And they keep adding to it. They're changing it around all the time. They're trying out new things, new plants, et cetera. What they told me is that they take about 5 volunteer days a year to maintain it. So there's a planting in the spring, they're bringing in new stuff and taking out some old. There's there's a process of, at the end of the year, kind of cleaning it up a bit, and in between, they do some cleanup and other things. And they're learning all the time. Like there's the one down there, they've learned that they put hibiscus along the edge because it has a very thick trunk, and it keeps the geese out from wanting to get in there and nest all the time. That they can't come in from the water side. So and they learned that over the time, et cetera.
No, I think this is great, though, the thing, I think it's great.
I'm sorry, everybody kind of jump in. Ron, then Jamie, then
Thank you.
Brian, sorry.
So some of the things that have already been discussed, the old police station site, because that was one of my questions, how would that tie into it? Because we don't know what we're going to build there yet. So we want to make sure it works with what this plan is here, but that's kind of been answered.
Yeah.
One of my concerns is, of course, the financials. I really, you said you can raise the money. What if you don't? I don't want to
Yeah, but then we
have to
don't
do what we did before for another project.
Then we don't build it. Then we don't build it.
Okay.
I mean, the modules are, say, I don't know, maybe 15 feet long by 6 feet wide. You know, both the walking modules and the planting modules. And they're relatively lightweight because it's a floating material underneath, right? And you just lift them up and put them on a flatbed and move them someplace else, and we tie them together. So if we don't raise the money to build it, and it's a good question that you're asking, Ryan, in terms of there's 2 sets of money. One is the construction itself, but the second is the maintenance, to make sure that, you know, we've proven, I think River Corridor's proven that we have a large base of volunteers that would, I would assume that those people, or a majority of them, would love to be involved in this and would offer time, et cetera. But, you know, are they still around 20 years from now? You know, we relied on the Potawatomi Garden Club to get us going on the Daffodil Project. And this year we had a few of the Garden Club people, but quite frankly, their age of the average member of the Garden Club is such that they don't want to get down on their hands and knees and plant so much anymore. So we would have to take that into account, and then maybe the Park District, or, you know, I mean, all of that's got to be laid out before we make this final. Yeah.
I mean, I could support this, very interesting concept here, but I just want to make sure that it is funded with donation and grants, or however that works.
Well, and they have, you know, that's one of my concerns too, because they have a staff of 3 or 4 people that are paid for by those grants. So they have a scheduler, you know, schedules activities. They got somebody, and they've created an advisory board that's made up of people from the Chicago Botanical Garden, from Shedd Aquarium, from the Lincoln Park Zoo, et cetera, that serve as advisors and also help them raise money. And so I would think that we might be able, you know, try and mimic that to some degree here anyway.
If we can do that, then it sounds like a good idea to work on.
Thank you. Jamie?
So I'm fairly familiar with this, sitting in a lot of River Corridor meetings. I do have a question. Let's assume that the selection site is the old police station. What happens if you have begun all of your implementation of this, and then we begin taking down buildings, doing construction around that? Is that a problem? And because in addition to just the buildings, there is also a plan to improve the seawall, and I'm just concerned that.
Yeah, the biggest question there would be the seawall, and if there was going to be major changes to it. I mean, technically, and if I heard the presentation right here a couple of weeks ago, you know, the feasibility study or discussion that you had, that construction inside the floodplain or in the floodplain area is probably not going to happen.
Right.
And from that standpoint, anything we did along that seawall would probably not be affected. And I say probably because there's a lot of unknowns in there. But, so I don't think that would be a big issue, but certainly, you know, the guys that, the Wild Mile people used is Hay Associates out of Chicago. They're the ones that also did the Chicago Riverwalk. So they're very familiar with, construction in that kind of environment. And they would probably be a resource, you know, through the Wild Mile people that could advise us and either do the engineering work or at least help us, you know, find a good resource for that.
Because I'd hate for you to anchor things and then have to unanchor, move, so that work could be done on the seawall, and especially if we
They
don't.
do it all the time. They're constantly adding new areas to try things, and, you know, they've got, when I was down there last, there was probably 7 or 8 landing modules on the other side of the river that they were just parking there temporarily, waiting for a place to take them. They're also doing a project down at Bubbly Creek, which is, those of you that know about the history of the stockyards, that there's a creek that ran through the middle of it that was the dumping ground. And literally it got its name because it was literally bubbling all the time. And they have put in the islands now of this same stuff to try and mitigate what's going on. That's all brand new. That's just happened here in the last 6 months or so. So I don't know the results of that, but.
Brian.
John, thanks for your presentation. Appreciate it. So it appears to be a lot of positive elements to the eco park.
Yeah.
So in general, I support it. I like the concept a lot. Ron makes a lot of good points about the financials.
Oh, yeah.
For me, I have more questions that you may not be able to answer. Like, what is the commitment of the park district? Like, I would like to know what their commitment would be in the future if we did this. You know, ongoing maintenance, what are those costs if they should happen to fall upon the city or the park district 20 years from now when, you know, who knows how many volunteers there might be. I'm not concerned about where it's located because it sounds like it's very mobile. You can move it around where you want, when you want, build upon it, take it down. So I'm not worried about that. But yeah, overall, I support the concept and, you know, I like it. I think it's, like Steve said, very practical. And, so yeah, looking forward to just getting more information and clarity on.
You know, and I think when you and I met here a month or two ago that, about this, we were taking baby steps, you know, the first, without knowing, very first step was to find out from you and then the park board tomorrow night, as to what kind of commitment or desirability there is. The second step that we have already done, to some extent, is make contact with the Corps of Engineers and with the DNR to make sure that they're agreeable to the concept, you know, and that there's no major obstacles of, oh my God, you guys can't, you know, do this. And so we've taken those, but we haven't gone much farther than that.
Yep.
So all the cost factors, there's liability insurance, there's other maintenance costs, et cetera, that Ron talked about. You know, all of that we would have to, before we went ahead and installed something or started construction or got permits to do all that, we would have to have answers for all that and present it to you for approval.
And then my follow-up question, didn't you say there's like you can put a smaller eco park in just to get an idea of what it's like or something? Didn't you mention they start out kind of small and they build?
Well, they're constantly adding to theirs, but, you know, it's always a question when you're doing these things, if you make it so small that it's not worth doing. Nobody's interested, it's not a big enough footprint to make a difference to anybody. It's got to be a significant enough size that it creates that attraction to downtown St. Charles, you know, and helps our businesses, et cetera. I can see they do a projection night out there where they hang, because the wall behind them where REI is probably, I don't know, 15 feet tall or something. So they hang bed sheets and they do a projection night. People sit out there, have popcorn, and you're sitting on top of the river doing that. It's just kind of neat, you know, watching things go on. They have a jazz quartet that comes on Wednesday afternoons or Wednesday evenings and plays out there. So you create activities, you know, on the park, just like any of our other parks and things.
Good stuff. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Vicki, are you there?
Hi, yes. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to throw in my voice of support for this idea. I think it's wonderful. Anything we can do to bring our community closer to the river and to make more out of that asset, I think is a very good thing. The benefits to wildlife and to less pollution, of course, are terrific, and all my questions were already answered. So I just wanted to say thank you for bringing this to our city, and we definitely would be very happy to support it.
Thank you. Yeah? Oh, you got more?
Sorry,
David?
I just, in the interest of supporting John, I mean, I'm still kind of hung up on this. I know there's a lot of logistics still to be discussed, but in general, can we Heather work with him to give him support from the city? I mean, we can at least give him that.
Well, and I think, working with Holly, assuming that tomorrow night goes well with the park board, that Heather and Holly will come up with some way of saying, here's some kind of, if you're in agreement, that here's a desirability, or, we endorse, the concept, et cetera.
I mean, not promising anything. I mean,
right.
Very high level,
Maybe the vice chair of government services can accompany you.
I'm busy tomorrow, I can't.
I got you, go, Dave.
I mean, maybe I could.
I would encourage all of you to go down there. It's not all that far, and, if you go in the middle of the day.
I'm kidding.
If you go, it's like 2 blocks from North Avenue and the Kennedy Expressway. So you can pop in there pretty easily, especially in the middle of the day. It's a half hour there and a half hour back, and stay out of the traffic. But on your way to the Wrigley Field, you can do that.
It's true. Thank you very much.
Okay?
Thank you, John.
All right, then
Well
moves
done.
us to 5L, recommendation to issue a binding letter of support for Section 519 of the Water Resources Development Act of 2000.
Good evening. We are going to discuss tonight the non-binding letter of support request from IDNR. I'm just going to go through a little bit of a brief history of how we got here regarding the dam in the city of St. Charles. So just for a clarification, I know this question came up several times as we've been working through this process. Our dam in St. Charles is owned by IDNR. So how this is working with the funding with Army Corps and IDNR is Army Corps is funding the actual study along the Fox River, and then IDNR is responsible for the commitment regarding any of the dams they own. There are a handful of dams that they do not own. They do, however, and they have restated this repeatedly, that they want to work with the city on the outcome of the dam regardless of what we want. They are going to work with us. They are not going to unilaterally tell us what they would like to do with the dam. So this study actually started in 2007, and it was put on hiatus for a number of years, and then it was restarted in 2023. As of this weekend, I did find out that federal funding is currently paused on this project. Now, that could resume in a week, 2 weeks, 2 months. We're just not sure where it's at right now. The other piece of that is that IDNR's funding, this $2.25 million that they have allocated, is already allocated. They do not have to go through any additional approval, so IDNR does have the funds in place to either remove or modify the dam, regardless of how the Army Corps does proceed at this point. So after a lengthy public comment period when they engaged in their initial study, they received a lot of feedback, especially in the city of St. Charles. The Army Corps decided to re-embark upon a different leg of that study. That's when they engaged in the programmatic environmental assessment versus just the standard environmental assessment that they were doing. That was at the end of 2024. So this summer, we started discussions. I asked Army Corps and IDNR where they were at, and they said that they, after considering the implications of that additional layer of study, were reverting back to just the standard environmental assessment. However, that was going to come with some additional sampling that they were going to do. Just as a quick reminder, too, the task force that the city created, that joint task force, part of the goals of that task force was to evaluate and figure out the environmental impact of the river. That was going to come at a cost with hiring some consultants, some engineers that could really tell us what was going to go on if the river was removed and any issues, or I'm sorry, if the dam was removed and any issues with that. Am I looking for it here? Oh, there we go. Okay, so the current status is that after they reverted back to that standard environmental assessment, what the Army Corps is actually embarking upon right now is called a bathymetric survey. So they're going around, some of you may have seen them out there with some boats, that's taking a sonar, and what they're really trying to do is collect both the river depth as well as any sediment that may be on top of the riverbed itself. And the goal of that is to determine exactly what sediment exists in the river And by nature of that, does that mean if the dam is removed, that that sediment will either flow down the river, cause other issues, or is that sediment contaminated, in which case maybe the removal of the dam is not in their best interest due to the cost associated with it. So really where we're at right now is the next step, since they've re-engaged in this environmental assessment, although it is currently on pause with the Army Corps, and I'm not sure when this will restart. The Army Corps was originally asking for a decision by the city on removal of the dam by early 2027. So over the 2026 year, the Army Corps is going to continue these studies, continue their reports, continue their engagement with the public and their surveys, with the goal of completing that by the end of 2026. IDNR has separately stated, regardless of where Army Corps stands on this, they do not want the dam, and that can look as a variety of different ways. That could mean a modification, that could mean a removal, or that could mean hand it over to the city. They ultimately just do not want that liability on their books, and they have restated repeatedly in various conversations that they will work with us on whatever that means. If Army Corps gets through their study and they say that the best thing for the health of the river is to remove the dam, IDNR will then approach the city and say, what do you want to do? So they will not then that next day say, okay, you said you want it, we're turning it over to you tomorrow by deed. They said as long as we are working with them to get to an ultimate conclusion where they do not have that liability on the dam anymore, that's what they are after. So they have been extremely willing to talk to us, engage in whatever dialogue. And part of their funding that they have allocated for this means that if we decide as a city we do not want to remove that dam and want to ultimately go with a modification, some of those funds can be used for us in a modification as well. So there's a lot of flexibility to this process, but what IDNR and Army Corps are looking for, at least right now in this letter that we received, is just a letter of support from the city that is a non-binding letter of support for them to continue their studies. The language in their letter looks very complicated and very technical, but through several conversations, again, I want to emphasize this is a non-binding letter. This does not dictate whether we do or do not remove the dam. It just commits us to Army Corps and IDNR moving forward with this study part of the process that they are doing, which is ultimately in our best interest because we do not have to spend taxpayer dollars to get the data that's going to be necessary to make the determination on where we go from here. So with that, that's my hopefully clear summary on what's going on, but I did want to open it up for any questions. We are making a recommendation from a staff level. This is the same thing Geneva and Batavia are doing, which is to participate in this study so we can get that data funded by the Army Corps so that we know exactly what we're dealing with the sediment and with the flow of the river.
Thank you. Thanks, Heather. I'm just curious, when you were going through your presentation, did you say are they evaluating the historic sites that are adjacent to the river, or are they no longer doing that?
Correct. Well, right now, the Army Corps' focal point is on the sediment and the flow of the river itself if the dam is removed.
Because if I recall, when we were on the task force, that they were going to do an evaluation of Hotel Baker, this building that we're in, the hole number 9 on the golf course, you know, the Piano Factory Bridge. So that is no longer in consideration?
That may be wrapped into the study already, but the new piece that they're adding onto it is that sediment sampling.
And then if the Army Corps comes back and says, we're just going to leave the dam alone, I'm assuming the state of Illinois still wants to remove any sort of ownership from it.
And I think that'll be probably a different discussion, because if Army Corps says that because of contaminated sediment, then IDNR would have to fund any of that removal of that sediment too if they want to get rid of the dam. So I think it just changes the conversation, and if that is the outcome, I think that we have to wait to see that to have an additional conversation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Just like from like an observation, the amount of angst that this is going to create, that we all dealt with this obviously in our campaign over the past 2 or 3 years. This is going to just kind of dial everything back up again. I mean, I wish there was a way that, I don't personally, if they said that they want it to be removed, I still would support it regardless. I mean, that's just my 2 cents. I would rather just find a way to put this to bed regardless, because it's just going to stir up a lot of issues. That's just my comments.
You said you would support?
I would, no. I would support something that says, we don't care what you say.
So I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can I, so they have to share the results of their study. So it's a non-binding letter of support or opposition that to be a part of a study that they're going to do without us on their dime, that they're going to have to share public information about the sediment studies. I don't understand why we're even responding to the binding letter, because it's not, or the non-binding letter in support or opposition, because there's no, what is the point of responding? Because ultimately, if we wake up and say, short of something horrific taking place, you know, this group wants to do X or Y, regardless of what the response is, why do we have to respond?
It's my understanding that they will not do all of the components of that study focused on the St. Charles Dam if we do not do this letter of support.
So if that's what ultimately this group says, great, we want to keep the dam, then don't do the study, or don't include them.
And that is absolutely one of the directions that we can take on this. I guess at least my thought process on it was get the data. They're going to provide it for free because at least then we have the information to know whatever we need to do. And if that's explore modification at some point to maintain the ponding or any of these other options we have, at least we have that data produced by the Army Corps that now we have in the study form.
Yeah. So two questions. What happens if we say no?
So how they've communicated it to me is that they would not include the layers of the study for the St. Charles Dam the way that they're doing for the remainder of the river.
And then should we ever want to know that information, we have to then pay for
Correct, a
or
consultant.
seek that information out. So say our dam fails and then we need to figure out is there contaminated sediment underneath there. We wouldn't know that because we don't have this data.
Correct.
And so I guess I am curious if, and this is maybe a larger question, you know, we haven't had any dam task force meetings, so would this not be something that would also be presented at something like that, or for the public to understand a little bit better in that context? Because I think reading the minutes, or reading the agenda, I don't know how many other people got asked this question, but a lot of us, or a couple of us were asked, what's happening? It sounds like we're making promises about something for the dam, and I'm just concerned that we don't have really clear information out for the public. And I'm just not really sure how the task force fits into this, or what's happening with that, or how we're communicating any of that to the public.
And I think so when the task force was sort of put on hold, it was because we were getting a lot of changing information from Army Corps and IDNR. They were engaging in that second programmatic environmental assessment that was pushing the timeline out to 2028 and beyond with what they were looking for. So now that they have scaled it back, as of July and August is when they made that decision to come back to just the standard environmental assessment and take on some of the components of the task force. I'm not saying that what the right answer is to the public-facing information or the task force, but this is taking a huge component of what we needed to know as part of that decision for the task force, and may eliminate additional information that just is appropriate for council at that point to decide.
And that 2.6 million, what would that even cover for our dam?
So we've looked at that, and I had Public Works just do some very rough numbers on this, and they've looked at if we were going to do a removal and some sort of modification, not taking anything else into account with the seawalls or anything else, we would be looking at somewhere around $10 million. That money allotted is $2 million just for removal of the dam itself.
And it wouldn't cover any kind of, if we decided we don't want to take it out, it's not going to cover remediation of issues, because if we have data that shows us that there are issues under there, I would assume someone has to remediate that.
Correct, and that would fall to us. So we're in the process of getting information on liability insurance and the cost of any maintenance that would need to be done on that on a yearly basis, as well as long-term maintenance. IDNR did say that a portion of that money they have allocated would be used for a modification or alternate options on the dam, but not 100% of it. So they were not firm about where they would fall and why. They just said that they could give a portion of that money to the city if we just took over the dam ownership.
So to Alderman Weber's point, if we just wanted to put this to bed and not talk about the dam anymore, and the city council wanted to vote to say we want to take over the dam, we don't even need your study. Sure. That's a thing that could happen.
Yes.
But then we would be absent any of that data and not really know what we're actually taking on, and we would then not necessarily forfeit that that $2.5 million, but it would be available?
Right, it would be reduced in some way. So if the city council is interested in going that direction, my recommendation would be that we still issue this letter of support, but we issue it simultaneously with some decision on the city council's willingness to take over the dam and not remove it or restore the river back to its original state. So you could do those two things simultaneously, because then you're saying that we are going to keep the dam, but we still want to participate in this study to know exactly what is going on with the health of the river.
Yeah, second part was my question is, this letter is completely independent from us doing that. We
Correct.
could, in the middle of December, make a vote to do something like that. They would probably be happy to hear it, and we wouldn't have any other reason we need to do, we need to do that at a certain time, but this letter has a timeline.
Correct.
And
as of right now, no, that may change with the pause that's going on, but this is originally the standing request I had.
And the function is simply to allow them to do this, this testing and data collection, to then report that out in a public forum.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Bunker, I'm not comfortable voting on this the way this is written right now. Would it be possible that we can table this until next Government Services Committee meeting, and take into consideration some of the comments that we've already made, maybe to have that letter together with this, then I'd feel better making the decision.
And you're saying a letter supporting the continuation of the study, but that we oppose removal of the dam itself?
Something like that, yeah. I don't have a definite, the wording, I'll let people that get paid a lot of money do that, but I'm just not, this is like a carrot to me, something doesn't feel right with it.
Yeah, so if I can just, this to me feels, once again, that the city, it's the tail wagging the dog. So you're trying to follow what the Army Corps of Engineers may or may not do. IDNR has told you flat out they don't want it. So we're trying to, it's the same thing with IMEA. It's the same thing of, until the 10 people up here look in the mirror and say, I'm for keeping the dam. I don't want to go down a fishing expedition of what may or may not be under there, because who knows it's going to tell us next. Or if you got 7 or 8 people that say, my God, let's get out of it. You gotta face the music about what you want to do as a community and say, yes, you might be buying a dam then. Well, that's part of your strategic plan. This, means much, but I think you've got to get this group regardless. I'm not in favor, I don't have a vote on this right now, but I'm not in favor of, getting involved with a non-binding letter of what we're doing. I think that the 10 people up here need to decide, what do we want the future to be? We understand that 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, there might be a change to that, but right now at this moment, here's our response. We want to do X. Because it just to me feels, again, that you've got all these other influences, and I could totally be wrong. You got 8 people up here that want to, go that route, that's fine. It just feels like right now we're in the same spot we were 2 years ago. We don't have answers to our questions, we're not sure where people are. Why don't we just ask and find out once and for all, because then maybe it tells you where to go.
If we just,
I'm sorry.
Oh, you want to go? Go ahead. Do we need to go into an executive session to decide if we want to take over the dam? It is property acquisition, by the way.
So we can go into executive session for property acquisition. That doesn't obligate us to. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Joe, I will let you do it.
Because should we go into executive session and discuss, hey, then to your point, just say, let's throw the votes out and see if we're going to keep the dam or not. Not tonight, but
so just because of
what
the
did Dan
public,
Stellato always say? You don't know until you vote. So
sure. So there are a couple different ways we could approach that, and we can think through that. And maybe have some discussions about the best way to put that on an agenda.
I'm sorry, I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, it's not that. It's just more of the strategic way to approach that. And I think that we have a couple different options on which way we can go. And if council feels like we want to vote on this, we want to say where our stance is on the dam, and we're unified, and we want to issue that statement publicly and handle all the pieces that fall into place after that, I'm happy to go that direction as well.
Mm-hmm. So how would this, if we did what is suggested up here, how would that play into the modification component of it? Would they say, we're not giving you any money, here's the deed to the dam, good luck? Or do we need to fill out this paperwork simultaneously with a letter of, we're interested in acquiring it, to get any sort of funding
So I think we would have to provide a plan to IDNR because they said that they would give a portion, and they were very soft with what that portion was of the money that they have allocated. So somewhere below $2.25 million is what they would give us if we went the modification route.
Okay, and then the other question is, if we give them a letter, I'm just guessing, we give them a letter in December, say, you know what, we're interested in taking ownership, but here's the other letter for the study. Are they going to literally give us the deed the next? So my question is, do we want to buy some time? You know what I'm open to that idea, but I'm just trying to figure out how do they work together and with the dam modification and just kind of assessing the condition. I mean, I would just like to know. I mean.
So what IDNR has told me is exactly to your point, if you tell us you want the dam, we're not going to turn around the next day and say, congratulations, it's yours. They said as long as we're working towards that end result of that transfer of ownership, and maybe that includes a modification, maybe that includes something else, they just want to know we're actively engaged in that process of taking it over, whatever that means, and did not put any sort of timeline on that. So I did not get the impression that was even a 6-month or 1 year or 3 year timeline that they expected that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
A lot of great thoughts going around, but I want to come back to kind of what Alderperson Baumgart and Weber have stated. I think we got to have a conversation somehow in some type of meeting with the 10 of us being like, hey, what do we want here? It's nobody's fault. I got asked this when I ran 3 years ago, and I don't want to really be asked this if I decide to run in a year and a half again, that it's still here on the table again. I feel like it would be nice to kind of come to a consensus. This is one of those conversations I don't think is a big group we ever have, where we know where kind of people, what their thoughts and wants are. So before, to Alderperson Weber's point, signing over a letter and making that decision, I want to know, is there a way we can do that in some way to get an idea, kind of like what Ryan was saying, hey, is there a consensus? Is there not? Do some people feel one way or the other? I think that would be a more logical approach than making that decision tonight. So Alderperson Weber, I'd like to support your thought on kind of tabling this from now until we have these conversations to get an idea, just to get an idea, to get kind of all the cards out there. Not that, or maybe they all are presented, I'm just not understanding it, but I'm at the same way, I'm not at a decision to make that tonight.
Perhaps maybe a dialogue on that exact issue is the agenda item, and where do we stand on it? And as long as council is comfortable having that discussion, I think, 2 years or 3 years ago, I don't think there was enough information available to really understand and assess that, and perhaps there is now.
Right.
Good point. Jamie, then Ron.
I just want to clarify once again, sending this letter in tells them exactly what. If we turn this letter over and sign this to them, what exactly does that give them?
We support their study to continue on in this process of evaluating the dams along the Fox River.
So why is it called a non-binding letter?
Because at any time we can revoke it. So our saying that we consent to participate in it, that we're supporting that, is not tying us to anything. At any point we could issue it, and then the next day turn around and say, you know what, we oppose this study, we oppose the removal of the dam, we're done.
Okay. So all we're saying is we allow you to go out on the river with your boat and use your sonar and use your equipment and do your study.
Essentially that we want you to do that. Yeah.
Yes. That we don't care what happens after that. That's not what we're talking about in this letter. It's just the study.
Right. Thank you. Even if, let's say we want to keep the dam, I still would like to know what's behind the dam. Once we own it, in 5 or 6 years, if we have to repair it or something, we'll have to deal with the sediment or no sediment. We don't know. I think we should at least know what's there and then decide yes or no. That's my opinion.
Vicki, you there?
Did you say Vicki?
I did.
Thank you. Just, I guess, one question and one statement. Building on Jamie's question, I thought it was just kind of an odd letter. Why do they need us to agree? Is there some legal permission they need to go on the river?
They don't. IDNR is the one that's managing the process of, because we are the locality where the dam is located, this is just the way that they're doing this. They want our buy-in to the process. And really, technically, IDNR is giving the high-level letter that they need, and then IDNR is asking us to participate in it.
Okay. I mean, I feel like data is good and the information would be good to have, but I agree with what Steve and others have said, that I do think the community will have a lot of anxiety when they see this in the notes or are hearing this, because it's a weird letter and people won't understand what it's saying. So I just think it's going to be really important if we sign this letter that we provide information to the community proactively about what it's saying. It is just odd. But I do think it needs explanation, or people will think that we're consenting to making a decision, promise to work with this committee that we just disbanded, and I think people will get confused and upset. So we just need to explain it or re the commission or something.
And I'll make it clear that if we did go that route and council said that we want to issue this letter, that it is not, we make it clear to the public that this does not impact any decision on removal of the dam or keeping the dam. This is just about the study and the data collection at this point.
Okay, just getting data.
So I agree with Steve's statement over here about, I don't know if you made a motion or not. That was
I did make a motion to table until next conference.
I will second that because I do believe we should do that. I do want the study information personally, because to Ron's point, I want to know what's going on in the river. And I agree with Jamie as well. I mean, what's the ramifications really? Although in your memo, it does say they'll assume we're against, so, that's unfortunate that they would assume, so with all that being said, I'll second his motion, and then I'll just say it again, I think we need to, would like to do an executive session, discussion on acquisition of the dam, so. But we don't need to do that.
Mr. Chairman, once there's a motion to table and it's been seconded, there's no further debate on that motion, and so, proper procedure would be called for a vote on the motion to table.
Call the vote.
Yeah, I seconded it. A motion by Steve, seconded by David. Roll call.
Gim,
Yes.
Spillman,
Yes.
Petrella,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Messner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis,
Yes.
Folks,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Thank you, that passes. That brings us to item 5M, a presentation and update on the lead line replacement.
All right. One last one for this evening.
Go get him, Tim.
So, just a quick update on that line replacement program. Our agenda really tonight is to really kind of go over the timeline again, the service line recap, our work ahead, the state federal funding updates, US EPA new law, the lead and copper improvements, LCRI. I'll touch on that real lightly, and then our action items moving forward. Just our timeline, just to kind of start, it's something I never mentioned before, really lead and copper monitoring and water systems have been going on since the 1980s. 2022 was the first major modification of lead. I also want to say the city continues to meet the current lead sampling standards for lead in the water distribution system. So I just want to make that clear. In 2022, Illinois passed the Lead Service Line Replacement Act that started this process, or right away, or shortly thereafter. In May 2022, we started our inventory process. And that's really the biggest challenge we've had and we'll continue to face throughout the lead replacement program is when we started this in May of 2022, really didn't have a good idea how many lead service lines, how many copper service lines, how many ductile iron, plastic service lines are in the water distribution system. To this date, we have staff every day knocking on doors, leaving flyers, trying to get into homes to help identify lead. I'll talk later about some additional rule modifications that LCRI that's coming. That's going to make it more difficult for us in the future. In 2023, July 2023, started council lead meetings just to discuss lead. What does lead line replacement look like? What are some of the costs? What are the policies, right? We really started to talk about partial replacement versus full line replacement. We discussed that really from 2023 all the way to 2024 when we approved a full lead line replacement policy. And that was really because the US EPA and the Department of Public Health in the 23-24 era started to give us the water utilities direction that they would really require a full lead line replacement. That would mean from the water main all the way to the house. And now we're up to kind of where we are today. We're doing, last year we had to do some EPA required citywide advisory notices, just because really it comes down to, because we have lead in the water distribution system. We believe that those notices will continue annually until we remove all the lead service lines, so it's something to kind of keep your eye out for. We also kind of in 2024, last October, a year from ago, we kind of provided you guys with an update with our replacement strategies. All those presentations are on our website too, so if you want to go back and reference those presentations and our lead line replacement policies, it's all on our website. Now we're up to today's date, October 25. We're talking on another kind of update what we're looking forward for the next year, as we're kind of rolling the budget season. It's kind of an important conversation. And also kind of lightly touch on some new rules that are coming. Actually, this month, the Illinois EPA started to adopt a new US EPA rules on lead line replacement. So they'll be starting their process to accept the federal rules. They'll work through their process probably the next 6 months, maybe 4 months, and they'll start to implement those rules on all utilities across the state. Moving forward, next year we'll start our continued survey. And our first year, we're going to call large-scale lead line replacement, so that's 340 lead service lines annually, going through the system in 10 years to replace all the lead service lines. Real quick, service line recap. I know that everyone's seen this, but it's always good to kind of recap. You know, typical lead service line, you have water main in the street or in the back of the property, in the easement, you have the fence line, there's a service line. The water main is not made of lead, it's ductile iron. Most of our stuff is ductile iron, cast iron. We do have some plastic water main, and then it's either a lead or a copper service line feeding a home. As a reminder, at the property line, the city owns up to the property line on water service. So that's that from that section from the water main to the outside shutoff, which is located at the property line. The privately owned section is from that B box outside the property line all the way to the meter. State law and even federal law requires us to replace lead service line all the way past the meter by 18 inches. So when we replace the lead service line, we're coming from the main all the way to the basement or crawl space of the home, going in past the meter and into the first valve. Our work ahead. Overall in the city, this number grows every year. We have 12,690 water services. Those are domestic services. Those aren't counting all the fire services we have in the community. Of those, 3,400 are lead or galvanized need replacement. We always talk about lead line, service line policy, but it also includes galvanized. Galvanized, if you have a galvanized service line, is required to be replaced too because it has some lead components in it. We only have about 15 or 20 so far galvanized services. That's why we always say lead line replacement, but just kind of keep that in mind. Moving forward, we will continue to conduct door-to-door surveys. Like I said, knocking on doors, leaving door hangers, sending out letters, getting the information, we need to know, what's the lead service line makeup in the inside of the house and in the outside of the house. We still are getting homeowners that aren't responding. So what's going to have to occur to meet some of the federal guidelines is we're going to have to start doing some hydro excavations. So that means we're going to have to go to our property line. And then the picture is basically our jet vac where we hydro excavate down to the service line, and we have to identify the service line on both sides of the curb stop. That's going to occur for any of the homeowners that aren't responding. We will provide them a door and hanger, letting them know we're going to do that work just so they're aware of it. But that that sometimes not everyone's happy about us, you know, coming in their front yard, that create excavations. We will restore it right away, and it'll be small holes, so we'll fill it up right away for safety, so.
This seems pretty extreme for somebody not opening the door. I mean, what are your communication channel, and letters and?
Yeah, letters and door hangers, to the homeowners, so. We'll also be doing targeted surveys, so that's areas where we know we want to target lead line replacements. I'll talk about a little bit of that in a couple slides here, where we're going to be targeting lead service line replacements. We're also going to be doing pre-construction bid preparation work, and legal access agreements. Surprisingly, what we're hearing through communities and even doing some of our survey work, there's a lot of homeowners that don't want to provide us access. So there will, in those situations, there's a process we need to follow for the law, but there will be some requirements that we will replace this partial. We'll replace our part of it, and the homeowner won't grant us access. We'll be working with our attorney with the legal access agreements, basically it's the easement agreement. It's protecting the city and protecting the homeowner, you know, guaranteeing that we're going to restore what we damage as we replace the lead service line. Replacement compliance is a calendar year, so there's all these different dates. That's kind of one key I remember. The LIEP and the feds require us to keep track and replace 340 in a calendar year. Obviously, we're a fiscal year of May 1st, so it's a little bit of a challenge. We got to make sure that we're always a little bit ahead of getting our 340 done in that calendar year. Our target construction start is May of 2026, this upcoming fiscal year. So we prepared all the bid documents in January, February, posting the bids, and then hopefully awarding construction maybe at 2026, so we can complete that 340 during our construction season, right? You know, we want to get as much of this work done as we can during the summer, spring, summer, fall, and then hopefully only be wrapping up a small number during the winter process. Estimated cost, hold on a second. So these are just rough costs that we're using currently. These are current costs too. So these are today's costs. That a partial service line city side is $12,000, usually around $12,500, because that usually includes asphalt and pavement restoration, which is very costly. The private side, the meter, depending on the house construction, the basement is around $8,600. So total cost, full meter to main the meters, we're estimating around $21,000 per service line. And obviously that goes up and down. It's going to change with every household. Your household is different than his household. Everyone's basement's a little different. The service line lengths are a little different, but these are estimated costs we're using for this project. As I said, these are based off this year current bidding climate. So you can imagine that we're looking at entire states that's going to be going to bid at one time. So our concern are raising costs, contractors' ability to come do the work, just simple supply and demand. What's the cost of copper going to do? What's the cost of all the other supplies we're going to need? What's the contractor cost going to end up being? We cannot predict that at this time. I mean, over the next several years, I mean, we'll get a better idea, but this is a unique project. You don't ever see this where an entire state's going to bid at one time on major lead line or water main replacements like this. It will cost us about $8.4 million per year. In today's numbers, that's $84 million over 10 years, we're estimating. Replacement strategy, well, this is a little bit driven by the LIEPA, and what we're kind of looking at from a city is what's the best practices that make sense for trying to get the most bang for our buck, right? So emergency leaks, damaged water services, those would be our priority. Obviously, we come across, let's say a plumber is out doing a sewer job and he hits a water service, and then we'll come in and we'll replace this water service while it's already open. Or if we have leaking to our lead service lines, current Department of Public Health doesn't allow any repairs to lead service lines, so our crew's got to come and replace the full lead service line all the way to the home. Infrastructure replacement projects, so if we have water main projects, sanitary projects, we'll be tying this a lot to future roads, MFT projects. So let's say we're repaving First Street next year. We'll look at trying to knock out First Street in this year's lead line replacement. We're also working with our engineering team to look at, hey, what are your streets for the next 5 years, next 2 to 3 years? You have a rough list where you're starting to look at, so we can get out there and start to replace those service lines before he goes through and replaces the roadway.
Have you coordinated with like NICOR or anything in case they have any main replacements that are coming up?
We reach out to NICOR and some of that stuff. They don't always respond. So when it's convenient, that would be the other projects that impact water services. We'll work with those teams, if it's them or another utility that's coming through that may impact our water services. It makes sense for us to knock them out before or while it's open. We'll take care of it then. Other areas we're looking at is, it's new requirement is failed lead line sampling location. So this is any location that we're now required to take lead line sampling twice a year, and it's right now level is 15 milligrams or parts per billion of lead in your water. If you're above 15 parts per billion, we'll come in and automatically replace your lead service line. So that's one of the new areas we'll be looking at, replacing those lines. High-risk licensed facilities, so there's schools and daycares. Currently, there is no public school that has a lead service line. We are looking at daycares. That list is updated every 6 months, or actually it's updated every month. We're required to look at every 6 months. Those are licensed daycares. That's not the mom and pop that may not have they may do daycare, but they're not licensed. But we'll look at the ones that are licensed and looking at the list and knocking on those doors when the new ones come up and check their lead service line. If they have lead service line, we have to offer lead service line replacements. And then the last aspect is census tract matrix. State and federal funding. So this is currently the only avenue we have for state and federal funding is Illinois EPA loans. So how this works is there are SRF funds, the same SRF funds we use for well projects, water main projects, wastewater projects. They have a special pot of money just for lead service lines, and they have a special way of how they manage that pot of money. The EPA annually evaluates this pot of money. I would call it the lead service line loans every fiscal year. Their fiscal year is July 1st. The current Illinois EPA line funding for this year, you can see it there, was $241 million. About counting them up, there was about 61 projects they awarded lead line replacements for. The current request for funding, obviously, is over $1 billion worth of funding that's out there. So they have that many cities and utilities, like City of St. Charles, that are putting in that many projects that we need funding for lead line replacement. Obviously, you can see the pot of funds is quite short over the demand. So all of us are submitting these projects to the Illinois EPA. They actually score it and rank it based off that census tract. It's something we talked about before. I have past presentations that really dives into this census tract. I'm just giving you here today the list of what they're looking at. Each one of those has a different percentage, and based off what the percentage is, you get a total score for your project. City of St. Charles did not receive Illinois EPA funding for this fiscal year. We actually made what we're calling the wait list. So there's a list of all these 61 projects that got funding, the $241 million. We're on the second list. We're waiting. So we did everything right. We submitted all our paperwork right. We just, there wasn't enough funding, and our score was too low to receive funding based off our census tract. Hold on, let me finish 1 second. We're currently ranked 39 of 43 on that current second list. Something else I want, before you ask your question, there's another list of people that didn't do their paperwork right, they're behind us, that are, also waiting for funds. Now you're going to ask me, so how do we move up or down, right, on this list? Well, unfortunately, with lead line replacement, this is evaluated every year. So everyone resubmits their paperwork here starting now. We'll start here in November putting our documentation together. We'll get submitted to the EPA, but we're starting evaluating in March, and they'll start letting us know in June and July if we've been awarded funding.
So if you didn't get the IEPA funding for metrics and data points that are unlikely to change for the next 10 plus years, so
Yes.
it's fair to assume that unless 40 other municipalities choose not to submit their paperwork or get done, that this realistically is a boat that we can find ourselves in for the foreseeable future.
It could be. It could be based off today's rules and how they score it, and we can't predict that. You'll see it later on. Our recommendation is to continue. It's staff time. Now that we've done the initial heavy lifting, and we get a lot of documentation put together, it's really staff time helping to put the documentation and resubmitting, so it's really low cost for us to resubmit. It still will be our recommendation to resubmit. The other thing is of that $241 million that's in that initial list, if they decide, like say 10 cities decide they didn't want to move forward for several reasons, let's say they can't pay the loan back, there could be hundreds of reasons why they don't want to use the project. The EPA can always reach out to the city and say, hey, we got some money left here, do you want it? Right, so that's always an option. But to your point, yes, we are based on our city's matrix, yes, we are a little bit lower on the list.
So everybody, for everyone in the class, if we didn't get our IEPA loan, the likelihood moving forward, fingers crossed. So are we doing a different funding source? Or are we paying this out of existing funds, cash on hand, et cetera?
We're looking at evaluating that as part of our rate study, because this will have to come from somewhere internal in the city, and there are other mechanisms we're looking at to figure out where that money is coming from. It's either going to be increase in some rates or diversion of some other revenue sources that we have. Those are the options.
Yeah. I guess that's where my question was going, because if you look at this, I understand if we get the loan, it would be great, but are we kind of moving forward to look at it like we aren't?
Correct.
So we're just going to budget from here on out over the next, I don't want to speak for the next 10 years, but I have so many years to assume we're not, so it'll become a part of our budget moving forward.
Correct. We will have to find a dedicated revenue source from this wherever it comes from within city budget.
Yeah, can I keep on going, and then we can follow up some questions afterward. So real quick, we've gone through this before. I provided you census maps before. They're in our policy manual. They're also in a couple presentations. What you see here is the darker red are our census tracts that score higher. Our lighter colors are our census tracts that score lower. Each individual number is the census tract. Like I said, we have this really broken down in detail. We actually have the entire list of all our census tracts and what data is collected and the scores. And again, that dark red is the highest scoring census tract all the way down to the lighter color. That's in our policy if you really want to look through and look at it in detail. So I'm going to move on real quick. I got just 2 more slides left, I believe. And it's really, this slide could be a whole nother presentation, and probably will be at some future date, is the new US EPA 11 copper rule. It's called LCRI, which you may hear about. The US EPA finalized this rule last October. Like I said, the Illinois EPA just started their process adopting the rule this October, just announced. It's estimating about 100 operational changes for the water utility. I've only listed a couple here. This will definitely impact our operational budget, a lot of PR, including some water quality testing in the future. And I think we'll provide you, once we have an idea of when Illinois will implement this and start implementing this rule, we'll probably be back to provide some additional information. But some of the laws, right away, and one of the ones the Illinois EPA is already moving on is starting in 2027. This is the city has 10 years to complete the lead and galvanized, replacement program. If you remember right, originally it was 20 years. Illinois had a different rule that had based off their population. It was between 15 and 20 years. This rule will cut that down to 10 years, and Illinois EPA is already moving forward with that. Again, it's a full lead and galvanized replacement. Again, we already worked through that as a city council. You guys approved a policy for full lead line replacement. Additional inventory requirements, we're going to have to be more aggressive. So you remember the hydro excavation I showed you? The EPA is even going to make me do that on copper lines. They're going to make us go out and prove that even though we know some of these houses were built after a certain date and time period, we actually have to go out physically hydro excavate and provide backup showing that those lines are copper. Increased water quality testing, we're already up to every 6 months. They're going to be looking at increasing that, plus additional notification. The big one that we'll have to have additional conversations on in the future is lowering our water quality level of 15 parts per billion to 10 parts per billion. That may be problematic for the city in the future. To date, we've been able to meet that 15 parts per billion. In the future, we may not be able to meet that 10 parts per billion. But let's see, we'll have additional conversations and different presentations about that in the future. We'll be strengthening public health protection and increasing public communication requirements, or all the requirements, some of the requirements of the LCRI. Our action items, our short-term action items right now, we currently have $300,000 for full lead service line replacements. We're using that at some daycares we have found. We also had several lead service lines that have been leaking, so we end up replacing those and we're working through those. Starting next year is going to be the $8.4 million annually. Again, as a reminder, that's 340 services a year. Staff will continue to apply for loan funding options. We also keep our ears up for any other funding options and continue to evaluate those. Staff will continue surveying and replacement areas. That includes, emergency leaks, service lines, capital replacement projects, to high priority location census base. Staff will continue to review the new LCRI and other budget and operational impacts. Next April, we'll be updating, as part of the requirements for the state law, we'll be updating we see there the City of St. Charles Lead Service Line Replacement Comprehensive Plan, which really is a plan that provides guidance. We provide it to the Illinois EPA for their review. All of this information is available on our website, including updates, including as we move forward with projects, we'll be putting those on our website. Now, do you have any questions?
Oh, thanks, Tim, for your presentation. So what happens if we don't complete it in 10 years?
I have personally asked that question to the EPA, including extensions. The EPA said they would be willing to provide maybe 1 year extension if you were able to provide the reasoning for. I think, personally, we'll have to see how this all works out. I mean, I think the city needs to have a goal to stay compliant. To stay compliant, we need to be replacing 340 service lines a year. If we're not compliant, then there's usually what's required is a citywide notification that rather than basically stating that we're not compliant with the 340 service lines.
Okay, and then my next question is the funding aspect of it. Ryan made a good point. There's a formula they go by to kind of, but I'm looking at what you had up there, and it looks like they have $1 billion worth of requests, and they gave out $250 million. So to me, it seems like a funding challenge for the EPA, perhaps?
That's fair to say. That's also it's federal. So you got to remember, all the federal money is passed down to the state. The state actually doesn't add, for the lead service line program, the state actually doesn't add any money. It's all federal money, and they just use the SRF, the loan funding process, to hand that funding out. The fact that obviously everyone's always, all those water agencies are always knocking on doors at a federal level, at state level, and been saying this for a long time, that there's way too many cities, there's way too many projects, you don't have enough funding resources. That's something they have to kind of continue to address.
So this is an unfunded mandate that's been placed upon a lot of communities, right, in Illinois. So what are our state representatives, have they been communicating with staff to say, well, we're looking into maybe help with funding, or is that kind of out of the question, or is that?
It's a conversation, I think, that's ongoing with all of them, but truthfully, everybody's asking for the same question, and part of exactly what Tim pointed out is the metrics of the community and the ability to raise the revenue to implement these, and we fall down that list because we have the ability as a home rule community to create funding for it.
Okay. All right.
But everybody's fighting over the same pot of money and trying to get these done, and unfortunately, we're one of the hardest hit ones in the state in terms of the sheer number.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So at what point, and obviously we're not going to qualify for any funding, and a loan is money we have to borrow and pay back, right? So at what point do we just say every resident in St. Charles for the next 20 years, you're going to pay an extra $7.22 a month to replace all your lead lines?
That's exactly what we're working to bring forward to council, are those options of how to fund it.
Good. Thank you.
He took my comment. It seems completely unrealistic when you're 39 out of 43 in a funding and having a 10-year when we've already noted that the cost of this service, because it's unregulated, is going to skyrocket, year after year, when people realize, now it's, an extra $5. You can't bankrupt the city trying to replace the lead pipes. So at some point, when do those conversations, start? Probably with your state reps of, 10 years would be great, but we can't spend every nickel we have to do this. So.
Can I, the other thing that, Tim, that you've said before that I think we have to remember is the cost is an estimate, but when we get to the point where we want our kids to go into this trade because there are so many different cities bidding for this work, I look at that 85 million and think that that's the low end of what we're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an estimate today. What's the cost of copper going to be that we have to replace in 2 years from now, let alone 10?
100%. And Tim,
just the people that are skilled, as you point out, Mayor, to put them in.
Right. And Tim, do I understand that the reason we're hit so hard is just because of the age of our, we have some subdivisions that have been built that obviously didn't use lead, but when we look at the age of our city and our infrastructure, is that one of the largest contributing factors to the extent that we have to do?
That's 100% correct. I mean, based off, it's an old River Valley community, so we have a lot of older homes, older infrastructure. It's the same conversation with our, water mains, sanitary mains. Because of that, we have a lot of lead lines. You look at newer communities, younger communities that were smaller and expanded, and they don't have this issue. There's some communities to the west that, really expanded, and, they were just a little farm town of a couple blocks, and they had no lead service lines. Or they had 20, 30, and they already knocked this program out because of a simple project.
Right. So when we're reading the Daily Herald, I'm reading how Pingree Grove is done and others are done.
Yeah.
We never like to be behind, but the reality is that this is nothing that we could have done, and as has been said, it's an unfunded mandate that we had absolutely no control of, nor did any other city council have any control of.
Correct.
But now it's our responsibility to deal with it.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep. Thanks, sir.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Brings us to item 6, public comment.
A lot of work.
Thank you. Steve Leffler. I want to start off by apologizing because I was incorrect in some of the statements I made at the last meeting. I mentioned that our outstanding debt was 26.4% of revenue, and that is not correct. My apologies to staff and to the council and to the members of the community who might have heard that, even though it was at the end of the meeting. So, I'll talk a little bit more in a few minutes about debt issues, but I've got a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to bring up. I have a couple of other items that I want to Brian, you and I believe David, you and I have talked about having a raised crosswalk in front of Milestone Row. I have a petition here I'd like to submit for the record with 19 of the 22 residents that live in my building that have signed and would like to have that done. A raised crosswalk would slow traffic on First Street and allow it to be a little bit quieter where we live because we're getting people zipping down there all the time. On the lead lines, $8.4 million a year is a lot of money. If we're going to do this with contractors, it sounds like everybody in the whole state is going to be bidding for these same contractors, so would it be easier for us to just buy some backhoes and go do this ourselves? I don't know. I'm not the guy to ask that question. I'm the guy to ask the question, but you guys would know better than me. Getting back to the debt issue, the ACFR came out and is posted now. And so I was able to get some exact numbers off of there. At the end of the fiscal year, the city had a total debt outstanding of $158,638.76. Of this amount, $93,830,289 are general obligation bonds backed by the full faith and credit of the city of St. Charles. The city also issued general obligation bonds where it pledged incremental property taxes derived from separately created TIF districts in addition to the general obligation pledge. This TIF district debt represents $23,605,000 of the total debt outstanding at the end of the year. The city also has $64,779,006 in low or no interest loans from the IEPA and $29,421 in installment contracts. Debt service on the general obligation bonds next year will be $6.6 million, including principal and interest. Debt service on the IEPA loans will be $4.7 million, principal and interest. Debt service on the TIF bonds will be $2.7 million, and so the total will debt service next year will be $14,159,886. That's $1.1 million monthly. In addition to the lead line issues that we've got, whatever we're talking about with the dam, we got the retaining wall. There's a lot of issues going on here. I encourage everybody to be extraordinarily careful with the city money from here on out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Not coming? No. Item 7, any additional items from council or mayor? I have one. Oh, sorry. Yes.
I just have one question for staff, and I don't know who this goes to, so I guess I'll direct it to Heather and can tell me if there's people here that can answer. So I'm curious about the City Connect or St. Charles Connect ticketing system and what the service level agreement timeline is for that. When questions go in, what's the expectation?
That's probably not a simple answer based on the particular request. So can I get back to you with a little bit more information on that?
I guess my question would be like a person, because I have a specific situation, but I think this is something that comes up frequently, so I just want to better understand what a resident should expect. So in one particular case, people were having trouble getting from the Charlemagne neighborhood to Redling because the street light wasn't cycling properly. So they were never getting a green light. They were never getting a green arrow. And so they were stuck either making a right onto Kirk Road and then going all the way around to get to their location or going through a light. And so there were some people who contacted me in my ward about not getting responses on tickets that are in there. And I guess I'm just trying to understand what the timeline is for something like that and what's the cadence of how those work. Other things like, general requests that go in. What would a resident expect? Because I submit a lot of things myself for people that don't understand how it works. And I don't pay a ton of attention to it because I'd say 90% of the time or more than that, they get done quickly. But what's the expectation, I guess, for the resident that is putting that in and then not seeing something returned to them?
So I'll answer the question. One is that it depends on the particular issue, because something like a street light timing, we have to make sure that the right jurisdiction's looking at it, so it could take a little bit longer. Something like.
And I'm not asking for resolution, by the way. I'm asking for that person to know that, like, it didn't fall into a hole.
And we don't have an automatic kick out in that system for that particular thing. Typically what happens is staff handles it, takes care of it, and then addresses the issue, but there isn't always necessarily a follow-up. And sometimes that's because we don't have a contact in the system for that follow-up. But I think you're bringing up a bigger question that we've been talking about, is a better ticketing system for that exact reason, because there isn't an automatic kickback response process where you can check in on it. And I think that's something that we've noticed has been lacking. So the short answer is there isn't one. The second answer is we're working on it to fix.
Okay. And I guess I'm just trying to help them understand what happens to what they are submitting and what they do when they're not getting any answers. Because in this situation, they came to me, and I want to understand what's the right path here. How do we manage that?
In whatever department it should fall within, and certainly you can come to me. Certainly go if it's a public works related issue to Pete to say, hey, what's the status of this issue? And there are truthfully a lot of times that we just don't have contact information when those tickets are submitted, but we can always answer those questions and look in our system and see where it's at.
Okay, but we don't have a true, like, we aim to respond to things within X number of days, or?
So we attempt to get it to where it needs to go within 24 hours. That's not to say the issue gets solved in 24 hours, but at least it's in the hands of the person to address it.
Okay, but that person that submitted it doesn't know that because it stays in that submitted status with no update to them. So I guess what my concern is that in the escalating concern, so 2 weeks went by where they got no response, no communication to them, and the issue wasn't resolved. And I guess I want to understand how I am to present that to them as the representative. What do I can't go out and fix their stoplight, but I did reach out to KDOT because I have a contact there, and I did that on Friday after 5 p.m. And this morning I got a response back that these are the reasons that was happening. We've been out there and it's fixed. So I guess that's my question: is why could those things not have been done in a 2-week time frame that that several residents have reported that? And I'm just not really sure how to answer that to them and what I'm supposed to do as the representative from that perspective.
And please reach out to us if there are those questions. The residents can reach out to us. The residents can reach out to, any of our helplines, our main desk or Public Works in those scenarios. But the feedback I have is that we're working on fixing that exact issue and creating a better system and policy to address those issues. So we don't have it in place yet, but it is something we're working on.
Okay. So, but in the meantime, that they don't know.
They can call or email to follow up to double check on it.
Okay. And we don't have anything internally where we're like pulling a report to say these haven't been addressed or these people haven't been talked to.
We're monitoring it within our Public Works system with those issues that are coming up on our ticket system, but it's not an automatic response to those residents. Our policy really up to this point has been to address the issues and not necessarily connect with the resident who put it in place. It's to address the issue.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? So I just have one, with item 5L, can we continue the conversation, because I'm not sure where we landed with the task force. Obviously, those two, depending on, the letter, what we do, that we're not then saying, so somewhere in the next 4 or 5 weeks, we can weave that in.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, then I think we do have an executive session, so we need to adjourn this meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Steve, second by Ed. All those in favor say
Aye.
Aye.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.